Hello and welcome back to the 6th video tutorial in this 10-part video tutorial series on an introduction to PHP for Drupal. I am Peter Worsley, the Toronto website developer specializing in Drupal, and in this video tutorial I want to walk you through arrays. This is a concept that we introduced in the previous video tutorials when we were looking at the post variable, but we didn't actually take an in-depth look at what arrays are or how we could use them. Now before we do that, I've got a big favor to ask. I'm over at torontowebsitedeveloper.com/store. If you're interested in purchasing any of these video tutorials, please visit me over here and you'll see for $20 you can purchase any of the tutorial series that I have available. Right now at the time of recording this, I just have the 3 on Drupal modules, but once this introduction to PHP is completed, it will be up for sale and you can take that and own it yourself. Additionally, if these video tutorials help you, please give it a thumbs up and or a comment. Let me know how it's helping you. I always appreciate the feedback, but it's also a nice way that you can help me increase the popularity of these videos because YouTube does look at the number of comments, people thumbing up a video, and as well how many people have subscribed to my YouTube channel. So also please subscribe if you haven't done that. That said, let's jump back over to our local host, and you'll see I'm at YTPHP tutorial 6. I've got some code up here because I was testing things out, so I'm going to reload that and it's going to disappear. Now what we're going to do is head over to our IDE. I'm using Eclipse, and you'll see I'm in tutorial 6. And all that I've done here on my file is I've defined a constant variable, which is BR. If you're not familiar with this, check out the previous video tutorials. And you'll see here that I've got some print statements. I've just commented them out because I'm going to be using them a little bit later. I figure the best way to walk you through arrays or try to help you understand what arrays are is going to be through examples. So I've gone ahead, I've created a bunch of code here. What I'm going to do is just copy it, paste it over, and we're going to walk through exactly what it does. You'll see here I've got player 1 through 6, and I've given them a bunch of names, and then I'm printing out player 1 through 6. The reason for this is because in Toronto we have a hockey team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I am a fan of, and I've gone ahead and I've created our starting lineup. This is the real starting lineup, but this would be the 6 players that would be on the ice at the starting of the game. You'll see I've got player 1 through 6, and then I've got these print statements 1 through 6. So in order to actually print out the names for each of these players, I have to have print statements for each one of them, and then I've got these little BR line breaks. Now, the crappy thing about this is I would have a whole lot of variables, let's say 30 variables, 20 variables for different sports teams if I was to include all of my favorite players. The problem with that is we got a whole bunch of variables in PHP, and each variable takes up a certain amount of space in memory. So what we'd like to be able to do is have one variable that actually controls all of our different, let's say, values. And that's where arrays step in. Essentially, arrays in PHP are kind of like a list of things. So I can have one array, let's say my roster, and I can have all the different names of the players that are going to be on my hockey team. So example of why that's important, let's go ahead and I'm going to take my first starting lineup, and you'll see here if I replace all of this code, I've got starting lineup, these funny square brackets, and then the names, right? So I've replaced all of those different 6 variables that I had with just one variable, starting lineup, and then these funny square brackets. I'm going to uncomment this code here, which is our trusty print R. We were using that in previous video tutorials, and that's just going to dump out my array. My array is going to be starting lineup, not lineup. I can go ahead and save that. And I've added these pre-tags. That's just an HTML thing, so that's a little bit nicer when I print out. Now, if I go over and I reload my page, you'll see rather than 6 different print statements, I've printed out the entire names that start at lineup just with one print statement. That's the print R. So that's kind of why this is important. Obviously, you wouldn't necessarily use print R if this were a live website or anything like that, because you wouldn't want this ugly output. But you could do something similar where you would just go through each one of these starting lineups and print those specific names. That's something you would do with looping that we'll be looking at in a later video tutorial. But essentially here, what we've done is we've gone ahead and we've told PHP that we want to create an array. And we did that by using this syntax, this specific way of writing our variable, and that's with the variable name, just like any other time. But then we use these different square brackets. And the square brackets tells PHP that we're creating an array, and what it does is it creates a value. So for each array, you're going to have a key, and then you're going to have a value. So PHP just created our key and started it at 0, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? We go back over to the site, you'll see it starts at key 0 and then all the way to 5. So we actually have 6 values, but it's important to note that PHP will always start an array, and I think every programming language is like this. It'll always start it at key 0. Now, let's say you want to add a new variable. We want to add our coach. We're going to add starting lineup. Easy enough to do. All that we do is go Coach. That's his name. I don't know. His name's Coach. We reload this. You'll see that we now have a 6 value Coach. That's how we can add to it. We can remove from this by using unset. And what we're going to do is pass in starting lineup. And then we actually have to provide it a value. And we do that just like our keys over here. So we're going to grab our key and let's say we'll unset Peter. So number 5. We're going to go unset 5. Save this, go back over here, reload it, and you'll see that Peter is now gone. So that's how we can add and that's how we can subtract. I guess the other thing that I want to show you is now if we go back over to our site, you'll see that we've got 0 through 6. We're missing 5. We want to reorder those. What we can do is we can go starting lineup is equal to array values and then pass in starting lineup. Go ahead, save that. We'll go back over to our script. We'll reload it, and you'll see now we got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, array values is a function. I know we haven't talked too much about functions, so this might be confusing to you. But I just wanted you to know when you're using arrays, and they're what's called structured arrays. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all numbers. You can use this array values if you've gone ahead and you've played with some different values, removed values. You can always go ahead and reorder them. So that's what that is. Don't worry if this is confusing. Don't let it boggle you down. We'll be coming back to functions in a later video tutorial. But the last thing that I wanted to show you is, let's say that we want to specifically print a value in here. So I want to print starting lineup, and I want to know who value 2 is. So I just go ahead and I pass into inside of these square brackets, and I've got to add a print statement, of course. Go ahead, save that, go back over, reload my page, and you'll see that I get the value Rob. Rob is being printed out because that's coming before the code for my print R. But the neat thing is I can go ahead and say num is equal to 2, and then instead of passing in 2, I can pass in num here as a variable. So we'll save that, reload our page, and you'll see we still print out Rob. This is going to be important when we're looking at looping a little bit later, because the way that we can print out this entire starting lineup is by changing this value each time we increment through a loop. And you'll understand what I'm talking about in an upcoming video tutorial. But just keep this in mind. When we're trying to access a different value in an array, we can pass in a variable if it's representative of a key. So this is one way to actually create an array, but let's say we actually want to know what position these players are playing. 0, 1 to 6 doesn't really help us. So what we can do is we can get rid of all of this, and we can take some code from over here, starting lineup, copy it, paste it in, and now what we've got is we've told PHP, okay, listen, create an array, and just leave it as blank. So right now I've got these opening and closing brackets. They're not square brackets, they're regular brackets. And then I end the line. But then on the next line, I go ahead and I say startup lineup RW is equal to Sam. LW is equal to Mike. C is equal to Rob. And now if I save this, I go back over and I reload this page, you'll see rather than 0 through 5, I'm actually getting RW, LW, C, RD, LD, and G. The interesting thing here is I've gone ahead and I've used this line to create an array. I actually don't need that. I can go ahead and save this, reload this page, and you'll see I get the exact same thing. The reason why you sometimes want to do this is you're not necessarily adding values right away. You just have this array. So that's when you would want to use that. It just makes sure that you don't have any errors. It's a little bit of a best practice, and you'll see it a lot in Drupal. Now, if I wanted to add a new value, just like before, just go ahead and add starting lineup. And I want to add my coach, so I can add coach in there. And he's going to be John Smith. I can go ahead, save that, reload my page, and you'll see that now I have coach in there. Remember when I showed you could use array values? Watch what happens when we do that here. You want to make sure that if you use array values like this, you're doing it intentionally. I'm going to go ahead and save this, go back over here, reload this page, and now I don't have my keys. I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's specifically what array values will do. It will wipe out your keys, and it will do it as a structured array, which is your numbers starting from 0. So just make sure if you're doing that on keyed values that you're doing it intentionally. Just like before, you could unset, doing the exact same thing. So you do unset starting lineup, and let's just say we don't want the coach in there anymore. Go ahead, save that, reload our page, and the coach is gone. So that's the unset. Now, there's a third way that we can actually create arrays, and I want to walk you through that as well. So what we can do here is do starting lineup, copy this, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste this. And you'll see here, rather than that first line of an open and closing bracket for array, I've left it open, and then on the next line, I've gone ahead and I've added RW and then Sam. But you'll notice here on the equals sign, it's not just equals, it's equals with a arrow to it. And that's because we're doing it between these brackets. And you'll see that I've created each line a different value, a different key, different value. They're called key value pairs. And that's just for ease of reading. I actually don't have to do that. So I can save this, reload my page, and you'll see what I get. But if I come back over here and I go ahead and I delete all the spacing out, so everything's on the same line, go ahead and save this, reload my page, it looks the exact same way. So it's just an ease of reading thing. It's something you'll see a lot if you're working with Drupal. Again, it's just for code maintenance. It looks a little bit nicer for you. So that's that. We could also go ahead and add in another value just like before. No different. Last thing that I want to show you is right now we have these single key value pairs, right? We have one key is equal to one value. This can actually be an array. So we can have an array of arrays. It's called a multidimensional array. This might get confusing, but what I want to show you, because you'll see this a lot in Drupal, I just want to introduce you to it. If I go ahead and I replace this code and I paste this in, I've gone ahead, I've gone lineup is equal to array, and then that first value is now equal to line 1, and it is an array. So it's got LW Sam, RW Paul, and then C and Mike. So if we compare this to what I had before, I go ahead and I paste this in, we had RW is equal to Sam. Well, now RW has actually become line 1, and it's equal to an array, and then all the different values within that. And this is the same way that we created an array. But then we step back into the next value, and you'll see it's an array, and then I've got goalie and coach. And so when we look at this on our actual website, if I reload this page, and oops, what am I doing wrong here? Printing the wrong one. Lineup. Go ahead and save this, reload this page. You'll see that my first value, right, is a line, and it's an array. So then I step into that array, and then I've got the second value, and that's an array, so I step into that array. But then at the same level as line 1 and line 2, I still got G, which is Bailey, and I still got coach, which is J. So that's a multi-dimensional array. I know that's a bit confusing. I wanted you to understand that. We're going to be working with these arrays when we're doing loops and whatnot, so I wanted to introduce you to them so you understood what we were doing. It's going to make working with loops a whole lot easier. But please, if this video tutorial helped you, leave me a comment, let me know. Additionally, if it helped, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please use the comments on YouTube. Let me know, and hopefully I can integrate some of the comments if people are confused into the next video tutorial. But that's it for this video tutorial. Hopefully it helped you. We'll see you for the next one. Thanks very much for watching.